got a great guest on our 1360 Christian Talk program today. One of the best realtors in Nashville and Tennessee is joining us for 30 minutes. Brandon Knox from the Knox Team at Compass Real Estate. Brandon, that's a great introduction. Why don't you start off with your biography?
Hey, I'm really glad to be here. Thanks for having me, and thanks for putting out the good news every morning on the radio. I love that.
You're welcome, Brandon. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so thanks for the intro. We are we run the Knox Team. So the Knox Team is a real estate sales team. There is my wife and I are partners on the team. We have two amazing salespeople. We have a full-time director of operations who keeps the ship on the straight and narrow. We've got marketing, PR, a researcher, and social media.
You had told me a little bit about your own personal history.
Yeah.
In Nashville, you've been working like crazy for the last 10 years. You're from Texas.
Yes.
You've been all over the country. How did you hit the ground running so fast in this market?
Yeah, well, we moved here. So we moved here in 2013, and I actually was still working. I was working at the top luxury real estate firm in Manhattan at the time, Corcoran Group, and so we moved here in 2013. I actually kept working in New York for the first 2 years, kind of went back and forth because I still had a large pipeline there while we were starting our business here. And then around the time that I found out my wife was going to be pregnant with our second child, our son, he was due in October of 2015. So in about August, I stopped in New York and just went full-time here. And we've never looked back. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What makes Compass Real Estate, where you work, different than other realty firms in Nashville?
We love Compass. First of all, the management staff at Compass, from the ownership on down to our local management, is excellent. Excellent people, excellent business people. The investments they do in technology to support us is unrivaled in the industry, and I'm really happy to have found my home at Compass. And I just celebrated my 4th year and going into my 5th year at Compass.
You know, you've heard about baseball teams,
yeah,
and football teams, and soccer teams. How do you start a real estate team?
Well, our team was actually started out of necessity. I was a realtor first, and then as I started to get some success, my wife joined me, and it was just the two of us for a while. And then just as things started to grow, we found the need to expand. We were getting more and more opportunities and more listings and buyers, and we felt the need to have a team that could help service our clients in the best way possible.
Your phone number is 646-436-9452, listeners. Give him a call. Also, you can visit our website, knoxopensdoors.com. Yeah. And so we're going to ask some questions that are pre-prepared here. What does the Knox Team do?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Knox Team, we are the number one ranked team in the state of Tennessee for a small team by transaction size. So basically the way that ranking system works is there's individual agents, small, medium, large, and mega size teams. A small team is 5 licensed brokers working together or less, and we are number 1 in the state and number 2 in the country for transaction size. So that doesn't mean that we have the most dollars sold. We're actually, I think, number 5 or 6 in the state by dollars, but we have the most deals closed between land, lots, and homes. We have the most transactions closed of any team in the state.
Okay.
Yeah, and we have 3 divisions. So we have a land acquisition division, which I head, which looks for land for developers and builders. We have a traditional resale division, which my wife and I work together, which is your traditional buyer and sellers like every other realty. And then we have an entitlements division, which basically helps clients to rezone land, to do adaptive reuses on land, rezonings, specific plans, which we call SPs, in order to get their lands for a higher and better use. So they buy land, it's maybe zoned industrial or agricultural, and we get it rezoned to maybe multiple family or commercial or something like that.
Brandon, what have you been recognized for?
Well, our team, like I said, we have been, so in the Greater Nashville Realtors, we've been very fortunate that we have been ranked the number 1 listing sales team 4 times. So since we started the team in 2013, we've been fortunate to win that award 4 times. So 4 times we have been recognized by our local Realtor Association, the Greater Nashville Realtors, as the number 1 team with the most listings sold. Mm-hmm. And twice we've been recognized as the number 1 team with the most buyers sold. So that's something that we're very proud of. And being such a small team, that takes a lot of work because there's only 5 of us full time, and we've also been recognized, like I said, nationally. And this past year, I was very fortunate to be recognized as one of the top 100 Compass agents in the country. And I got to go to New York and hang out with the other top 100 agents and spend time with our founders. We even got to ring the New York Stock Exchange bell, which was really cool.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, it was one of those bucket list moments. So,
yeah, I've heard of people that do that.
Yeah, it was. I lived in Manhattan for 13 years, and I never could, get inside that building. They'll just let you in, and so it was really, really cool to walk those halls and experience that with everybody.
That is so cool. Well, what motivates you? What drives you?
Sure. Well, I have a, you mentioned sports earlier. I have a tremendous will to win, and I want to do the best I possibly can. And I look at every day as an opportunity that God gives me to better myself and better my surroundings and those around me. So I'm very motivated by the idea of family legacy. I'm very motivated by the idea of creating something for my kids and my grandkids and potentially my great grandkids who I may never meet, to have, a legacy business to have and to grow and to be in a place that, I didn't grow up in. And so I'm very motivated by the thought of creating, family legacy business, family legacy, wealth, opportunities for my children that I'd ever had. And then I'm very motivated by perfecting my craft. I'm always trying to find ways to be better as a real estate broker, and then more recently as a developer. I'm always trying to find ways to be better and to compete honestly against myself. I want to try to be better today than I was yesterday, and hopefully I'll be better tomorrow than I am today.
Sounds like a mission statement.
It actually is my mission statement. It's actually written in my cell phone, and that's a paraphrase of it, but it's actually written in my cell phone, and I try to read it every morning when I'm going through my alone time with God to try to ground myself for the day.
We want to talk about the Nashville market. How do you see it? Where do you see it going?
Well, it's funny because you hear all these folks talking about, obviously, we all know about what the economy's doing, and we all know about what the Fed's doing with the interest rates to try to curb inflation. And, those are things that are nationally prevalent. But here in Nashville, the market's still very strong. If something's priced well, if it's a good product, I'm speaking more from the new construction standpoint because we do so much of that. But if the product is built well, it's priced right, it's marketed correctly, and it's in the market, things are still selling. I read yesterday that nationally we only have about 1.8 months of supply of inventory, which is very, very low for nationally. Here in Nashville, depending on the zip code and the price point, it's a little higher, but it's still well below what it should be. So my standpoint is I think the market's going to recover as the interest rates start to tick back down. Combination of a few things. One, you've got a lot of people that refinanced during COVID to get these 3% rates or even lower, and they're not that keen to sell right now because they don't want to lose that great rate. And then you've got other people that have been priced out of the market because of the combination of rising interest rates and the market going up. So houses are expensive and the money to borrow to buy them is expensive. And so they're kind of on the sidelines, on the fence, if you will, just waiting for the right time. And so I think we're going to have a lot of pent up demand there. And then also a lot of the investors, people that buy for Airbnb or rentals or people that buy groups of houses, I call it selling in pods, that, we're traditionally in the Nashville market, they're kind of taking a step back to see, what the absorption rates are going to be and what rents are going to be and things like that. So I think as the interest rates stabilize into next year, which a lot of people believe, and I personally believe will, and they stabilize in the mid 5s to low 6s, I think you're going to see a lot of pent-up demand between those three groups coming, and I think that it'll be a very robust selling season at that time.
It's really interesting talking to you, Brandon, because there's so much that's gone on in Nashville, especially if you've lived here all your life. You're just overwhelmed. You just don't know what to make of what's going on, where it's going, but you're not particularly overwhelmed. You're just happy with it. You don't think it's too big, too much? No,
the way I look at it is God's given me a tremendous opportunity with what he's allowed our business to do. And so I look at every day as an opportunity, and my job is to be the best steward I can be of the opportunity every day and to continue to walk through the doors and the windows, so to speak, that God opens. So, no, I think the growth is healthy. I think there's some places where, as long as growth is sustainable and it's a healthy growth and, not overbuilt, I think it's an amazing thing. And I think Nashville has a lot of runway, if you will. I look at some of these other large cities that we always get compared to, such as Austin, Charlotte. I was at a meeting at the Nashville Downtown Partnership recently, and they talked about how a lot of people think that we are like Boston 20 years ago and Seattle 10 or 15 years ago, and that there's just so much runway in Nashville, both from a residential and a commercial standpoint. I think we have a lot of opportunity for growth. And frankly, geographically, we can grow in all four directions, where so many of our sister cities are hindered by mountains or large rivers or oceans, and they can only grow one way. And, we can grow all four directions, which I think is great for the city.
Do you think the explosion is universal? It's everywhere because there's so much of it, or is it right in the middle of the city?
Oh no, it's everywhere. I mean, we are as far out now. We've got projects that we represent. We represent a lot of builders and developers, which we're very thankful and fortunate to get to do. And we've had projects as far out as Lebanon, as far down as far over as Jackson. So no, the growth is everywhere, and it's in all price points, and it's rural and it's in the urban core, especially inside the 440 loop. We do a lot of stuff inside the 440 loop, and then we do a lot of stuff. We've got neighborhoods coming in Antioch. We just finished one in Bellevue. We've got neighborhoods coming in Hermitage. So the growth is definitely everywhere.
Well, let's talk about some of those price points. It wasn't too long ago when the average home was well under $200,000, and now the average is $400,000. I'm sure you probably work with millions of dollar homes.
Yeah, I mean, right now today, I mean, we've got listings ranging from our lowest listing, which is actually closing Thursday, is 200. It's going to close at $240,000. It's a renovation opportunity up on Mormon's Arm in District 2, Council District 2, just north of the river, and we've got stuff all the way up to $13.5 million. A beautiful custom spec coming in the Harlan neighborhood out in Brentwood, and everything in between. So it's all growing, and it's all moving fast.
What I'd like to ask you too is, with your knowledge of the market, as we look at these buildings and don't know who's going to occupy all these new skyscrapers that are coming into Nashville and multi-story buildings, where is most of the outside growth interest in Nashville coming from?
It's coming from everywhere. A lot of people are leaving. And there's a lot of reasons people come to Nashville, but the most prevalent ones that we see are people leaving states where they feel like the taxes have gotten a little high. We see a lot of people leaving California, New York, Chicago, a lot of people leaving the Portland area. We have heat maps, and we track where people are coming. So I think it's a combination of people moving for potentially political reasons and also tax reasons. Obviously, as a no state income tax state, you can move your company down here, and it almost feels like an immediate pay raise if you move your LLC or your corp to Nashville. And then we're a pro-business state, and all of the things that people measure by. I had lunch recently with one of the heads from the Nashville Chamber, Mr. Jeff. And he was showing me some amazing stats. Just Nashville ranks so high in everything. So regardless of what it is that attracts you, whether it's quality of life, whether it's low taxes, whether it's the schools, we have so many great college institutions. Private schools here are amazing. Public schools are good. Regardless of what it is, we have an amazing quality of life here in Nashville that very few other places offer. And I think that's why a lot of people come here.
Okay. I was thinking about renting and downsizing a couple of different. Completely different. My mind is going in different directions. Which one do you want to handle first? They always say you shouldn't be a renter. You should be an owner. But I don't necessarily agree with that.
Renters there's pluses to being a renter. First of all, if you're a renter, you're less attached to the property. You can turn the keys into the owner and move on. You can save your money to invest in other things, whether it's the stock market or other things. So I think you've got to look at your personal situation and see whether it makes most sense to rent or buy. And a lot of that's going to come down to what your 3 to 5, 7, 10-year plan is, whether it makes sense for you to do that.
But you don't think $2,000 a month or $2,500 a month is astronomical or out of line?
If you take a trip with me to Manhattan or San Francisco or DC, or even Miami, you will be more than happy to come back to Nashville and pay $2,000 a month in rent.
So $2,000 is kind of the going price, if you will, right now.
That's
it depends on where you are. It
depends on
right?
where it is, but I think if you've got a good place in a good area at $2,000 a month, that's a really good rate.
Well, tell me, Brandon, what's the typical mortgage costing right now?
Well, I checked mortgages this morning.
Not the rates. I mean, what's the average payment, if you will, depending on what you buy, would you say? Well, you've probably seen people pay, thousands of dollars a month, right?
I guess it depends on your price point and what you're putting down, whether you're doing something that's like 100% of costs, like a VA or an FHA, or whether you're putting down 20 or 25, 30%. It will all be relative. And then, of course, your price point.
Then let's talk about that investment thesis about a home being the greatest investment that people will ever, the largest investment people will ever make. Do you think that still holds true? And do you still think that real estate in Nashville is a good investment, say 5 or 10 or 15 years from now?
Yeah, I'm a real estate guy. Real estate is one of those things that's always going to be there. They're not making any more dirt, and owning land, owning property, even if it's a condo, whatever it is, I think it's always a good investment. I think Nashville real estate particularly is a good investment, and I think as long as you've got sound financial advice and you're working with a good agent, shout out Knox Team, that you're going to do well. And especially over time, it's kind of like my financial advisor always talks to me about trying to time the market versus spending time in the market. So I think if you buy something and you buy it right and you hold it long enough, it will always make money.
Once again, we're talking to Brandon Knox. His phone number is 646-436-9452. Also, please visit knoxopensdoors.com. Now, the other half of my question involves downsizing, and I think a lot of people are kind of hesitant to do that with interest rates where they are and home values being such as they are. What are your thoughts about helping people downsize.
You're talking about someone that maybe is an empty nester or
Exactly.
something that, yeah.
Exactly.
So, that's something we talk about a lot. Like I said, a lot of people, even if they didn't need to refinance, a lot of people refinanced during 2020 during the COVID because the rates were so low, and now they've got these really low rates, and they're facing this conundrum, if you will, where they're in these big houses, but they've got these really low rates. And so what to do? Well, first of all, you could look at turning that into your investment property because you've got the low rate and going and buying something new. There's a lot of things to look at. A lot of these people have tremendous equity in their houses because they've held them for so much time. So there's opportunities there, whether you're taking a reverse mortgage, whether you're looking at taking a HELOC and then going and using that to buy an investment property. There's a lot of ways to do that. But I think when you're looking at whether or not to downsize, it comes down to lifestyle and needs. If you don't need the rooms, if you don't have kids at home, if you're not having lots of visitors, you may not need that space, but you're also going to be having tremendous equity and opportunity to make money on that, and go on to the next thing.
Brandon, tell me you're not one of those cash now guys.
Cash now? I don't know what you mean.
We'll buy your home for cash on the spot.
No, I'm not one of those guys. No.
What's your opinion of those people?
Well, I'm on live radio, so I'll just say
well,
that,
just keep it to yourself then.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's got their business model that works for them, and God bless them for creating that and running with it. But for me, that's not how we operate.
Because I have a lot of respect for realtors because really you're educating people.
Yeah.
Most people have no idea what to expect when they get into the real estate market.
Most people don't know. They're not aware of their options, and I think that's the thing. Is in real estate we wear a lot of different hats, depending on what the client's needs are. But at the end of the day, education and making sure people understand their options. Like, hey, you don't have to do this. You have equity here. You have the ability to take a loan out. You can do a HELOC. You have the ability to rent it. Whatever the case may be. Educating. I really like an educated consumer, whether it's a buyer or seller, because that lets me know, first of all, that they're serious about doing business, and second of all, that they've taken the time to understand what they've got and what they can do with it. And I speak the language with them. I tell people all the time, I speak real estate, right, just like I speak English. So yeah, I think education is so important, and if you can educate your clients, first of all, they'll appreciate it. They'll see the authenticity in what you're trying to do, and they'll refer you, and they'll want to keep coming back to use you.
How about working with first-time buyers?
In what context?
Any context. Is it easy?
I mean, sure. Working with any buyers is, I don't look at it as easy versus not. I just look at every challenge as a solution, and you just have to figure out what they need. First-time buyers need to understand, what the down payment needs to look like. They need to. A lot of first-time buyers, they only think about the down payment. They think, okay, how much do I need to put down to buy this house? But they don't think about closing costs. They don't think about prepaids or title expenses or PMI or anything like that. So educating them on the full gamut of what you need to buy a house, not just what percentage down, is an important thing. I
want to recall somewhere along about 2007 or 8, before what do they call that? The Great Collapse? Or what?
Yeah, you talk about financial collapse? Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. There was an adage, a conventional wisdom at that time that said, buy as much house as you can afford because you won't lose. Is that still true? In other words, get in over your head because it's just going to go crazy. Is that still true?
I would certainly never advise anyone to intentionally get in over their head.
Well, of course not. But the old adage was you couldn't miss.
Well, look, I believe in real estate. And I believe especially in real estate long term, but you certainly can get underwater if you're not careful. So I think it's not about buying as much as you can afford. It's about looking at what you need and making sure that you understand what your total monthly cost is going to be. Because that's what people want to look at. People want to know what their rate is, interest rate, and they want to know what their monthly payment is. And you've got to also calculate in, you're going to have your insurance and other things. So those are going to add to the monthly. So you need to know what that is and make sure that based on your income, or you and your partner, spouses, whatever income, that you can afford that comfortably. So no, I would never advise someone to get in over their head just because they could get a loan that would allow them to.
Of course. Brandon, you are an advisor though. You're an educator.
Right.
You're helping people understand. So, you have access to all kinds of different tools.
Yeah.
You have the financing people at your disposal.
Right.
You have everybody.
Yes.
Why don't you talk a little bit about that whole process?
Well, we have everything you might need, whether it's lenders, whether it's inspectors, whether it's title attorneys, whether it is specialists that need to remediate something you might find in the house, water, mold, whatever it might be. We are full service. So if you work with us, we will basically help guide you from step one, which is, hey, I'm interested in the house, all the way to the last step, which is, hey, we're closing, and everything in between, and make sure that you are informed and making the most sound decision you can make along the way.
Mm-hmm. And how about yourself? Are you involved in continuing education?
Oh, sure. First of all, I'm always trying to learn. So I read multiple things every morning. And as far as official continuing ed, yes, we are required to keep up with our licensing. I'm a full broker, not just a salesperson. So I have a broker's license that I keep up. We do continuing ed. I think I've got some continuing ed coming up in October. I want to say that it's 16 hours for one and 8 for the other, and that will get me in another 2 years on my license, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One of the things you hear on the news oftentimes in Nashville is the availability of affordable housing. Mm-hmm. I don't quite understand what it means to have affordable housing. Would you explain that concept?
Well, that's obviously a very hot button topic in Nashville. My sort of thinking of affordable housing is that it comes at a price point that the medium income earners can afford. So when I think of affordable housing, I think of, housing for, I'll give you an example. I read a study, it's been 2 years now, maybe, or 3, but the study that Vanderbilt, I think, was the one that put out, it was one of those, Vanderbilt or Belmont, one of those, said that something like 90+% of people that serve in Davidson County, so these are teachers, police, EMT, nurses, firemen, city workers, those types, can't live in Davidson County, can't afford it, or they're renting. They can't buy. And so I think more things geared towards them. So how do you do that? You can work with the city. There's obviously public-private partnerships. You look at opportunities to create that housing, and then incentives that can get them in there. So we looked at some projects, and we're always looking for ways to do that. But we looked at a project where we were going to have a bank help, and we were going to do what was called the Everyday Heroes loan. And essentially, if you were a police, fireman, nurse, first responder of any kind, teacher, city worker, everyday heroes that are the real heroes out there, that you would be getting assistance. So there'd be down payment assistance, closing costs prepaid, title assistance. So we had lenders on board, we had closing attorneys on board, and there was even potentially assistance from the city if you worked in some capacity with the city. So we would to help you get into the house, right? To help you get into the house and start creating equity, because owning real estate is one of the best paths towards creating generational wealth for families.
Also, there's always been discussion about commuting times and the problems with that in Nashville, but it doesn't seem like there are any ready-made solutions available. What are some of your contemporaries suggesting to you?
That's way above my pay grade. I do know that, mass transit is important, carpooling, bus and train lines, things like that are important. But again, I couldn't comment on, the city's or the state's position on that. I don't know, but those are things as Nashville grows, which, growth is inevitable, whether you think it's good or bad, it's inevitable. I happen to think it's good. We've got to address those things so that we grow responsibly and we don't become gridlocked like some of the big other cities around the country.
You mentioned earlier in our conversation the lower taxes as being appealing in Davidson County. I suppose maybe if you're from California, New York, or someplace else, maybe you find it appealing. It still seems somewhat excessive in many respects.
If you're from here, yes, and but as someone who moved here from Manhattan, 10 years ago, the taxes are still very low, and especially the fact that there's no state income tax, it is great. And comparatively, dollar for dollar, it's still very low.
Still very low.
And it's very desirable.
And that's a big draw. Yeah. And we didn't talk about like California, Illinois, and some of those places. Mm-hmm. These are cash buyers. I'm sure you worked with cash buyers, people who want to come into the market. Do you do that?
Oh, absolutely. We've gotten a large influx of buyers from California, New York, other places that are cash because they're selling out. So they're liquidating what they've got, real estate and otherwise, and they're coming to Nashville with money in their pocket and buying a place. And
so, is it still a buyer's market?
It depends on the price point and the location. There are some places where you just can't find a house, and so it's a seller's market because if a house goes up in that location, there's going to be people clamoring for it. And there's other places where the inventory might be a little saturated and it might lean more on the buyer side. But right now, the market's healthy, so it's really case by case, neighborhood by neighborhood, price point by price point. Individualized, whether it would be a buyer's or seller's market per se.
You sound really positive, and that's great, Brandon, because I don't think a lot of the realtors that you talk to nowadays are as positive as they can be.
Well, like for me, there's so many things that we can't control, right? The world, we all know that we live in a fallen world, and that's clear. I can't control what the Fed does. I can't control the war in Ukraine. I can't control crime. What I can control, and what I try to preach to my team, is we can control what we put out, the energy we put out, the hustle we put out, the mindset we put out. And I have a business coach based in Atlanta, and his big thing is mindset is everything. And so I think I really try to create a positive mindset every day. I work every morning to try to get myself in the right mind frame for the day, so that I'm being proactive versus reactive to the things that happen.
So you've been here for 10 years.
Yeah.
Kind of running down a little bit, but you've been here in Nashville for 10 years. You were in New York for 10 years.
13.
Yep. So you've got like 25 years or more, real estate experience?
No, I'm in my 15th year in real estate. I wasn't in real estate the whole time I was in New York. I was in school for a while and other things, but I have I'm in my 15th year in real estate right now. And
you intend to keep doing that?
Yes, absolutely. It's our family business. It's in my blood. It's something that I hope to be in business, 20, 30 years from now, and bring my children into the business when they're old enough, and, continue to build our family, real estate portfolio as well, and pass that along to them to manage someday.
And if you're wondering, their office is located in Green Hills on Hillsborough Road, right?
Yes, 3990 Hillsborough Road. We're in Suite 320. That's right across from Trader Joe's on the 3rd floor.
What about this website, Brandon? KnoxOpensDoors.com. What can they do on the website?
Yeah, KnoxOpensDoors.com for all your real estate needs. You can look at properties. You can see our exclusive properties we have for sale. You can contact us for buyer representation, and we also have a list of other helpful links.
It's neat. It's neat to ask this question. You are still doing, and you gave me a beautiful business card. Thank you, by the way. Yeah. Is it still, in terms of conventional ways to sell real estate, put it on the market, list it, and how long is it going to be on the market?
You're talking about the average days on market.
Mm-hmm.
Again, depends on price point and area. The average days on market have definitely gone up some right now, but yes, we do all the conventional things, but we're always trying to look for ways to get stuff sold for our clients. I'm very much against the idea of listing a house and just sort of putting it out there on MLS like you would put a fishing line into a pond and wait. So I don't like waiting. I like pushing. So I look at our listings every day, or at least a few times a week. What could we do? Are the pictures great? Is the wording great? Is it geocoded properly? Do we have proper supporting documents? Does it link to the right places? All the things like that, because we are paid when stuff sells. So I tell my clients all the time, like, we're not in the business of collecting properties. We're in the business of selling them. So we are always looking for the most economical and efficient way to sell properties for our clients.
Is there also hope for people that don't have such nice properties that maybe you can come in and tell them what to do and
absolutely, yes,
put a smile on their face?
Compass even has a concierge program that so we if you've got a property and for whatever reason you either don't have the funds or you don't want to spend the funds to fix it up, we actually have a concierge program where we can come to the property and we can actually spend some money on the property to spruce it up, whether it's paint, appliances, lighting, landscaping, those types of things, and getting it ready for market. There's no cost to you for that in terms of like a percentage. You just pay that back dollar for dollar even out of the closing, but we can do that for you so that you can get your property ready for market.
That's really nice.
Yeah.
I guess that's been around for a while. Other companies probably do that too, right?
I'm sure that they do in some fashion. Compass's program, the Compass Concierge, we call it, is very well known, and it does very well.
Well, Compass is coming on the market strong, isn't it?
Yes.
It's been around for a while?
Yeah, Compass has been around for 10 years, based in New York, and they came to Nashville in 2018.
Oh, so they really haven't been in Nashville that long, have they?
No.
That's kind of why I'm surprised.
Yeah,
the name Compass makes sense. I just haven't heard it for very long.
Look, when you have a really good business model that you believe in and you surround yourself with the best people you can possibly surround yourself with and the top agents, and you have a spirit of collaboration and entrepreneurship, you can grow fast.
Well, you're cool. Hey, Brandon, that phone number is 646-436-9452. Before you go, are you a social media guy?
We do. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook at Knox Team Nashville. And of course, I'm on LinkedIn personally, Brandon C. Knox, Knox, on LinkedIn. We also have a YouTube channel, also at Knox Team Nashville.
And your closing thoughts on this wonderful day about your time here at 1360.
Well, first of all, I just appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I appreciate what you all do and how long you've done it. And as a faith-based business, as a Christian businessman, I'm just glad that you guys exist and that these types of things are put out there.
Thank you very much for being with us, Brandon Knox, the Knox team at Compass Real Estate in Nashville.